Okay, so we are we have just finished up section 5.1, or the majority of 5.1, and I had mentioned to you that you're going to see all of your exponent rules eventually get put together, and so I would encourage you to make sure you write this down. This is what I'm going to call 4 steps for simplifying exponential expressions. I made this up. I did not find this from a book. I did not. You're not going to find this in a book anywhere. You're not going to find this online if you Google it. So make sure that you get this written down, because this is a way to sort of simplify the exponent rules that we're going to talk about. And I know we haven't talked about them all yet. We're going to introduce some more of these to you in just a few minutes. But as you begin to see these problems all, these exponent rules all put together in various problems, you need to make sure that you can, you know how to work through them. And so, for example, I could have given you these 4 problems. This is the end of section 5.1, and I've shown you in the previous video all the exponent rules, power rules, and product rule that you need to be able to simplify those. And so what I could have done is I could have said, all right, let's simplify these. And in class, when I'm with you in person, a lot of times I'll kind of use that as an example where I could say, all right, there's your 4 problems, go. And people just kind of stare at me and say, go where? Because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And even though we've talked about the product rule and the power rules, what I've realized, and again, after teaching this topic for many, many, many years and many semesters, I realized really quickly that I needed a better way to help you know what to do. And so that's where these 4 steps came from. Kind of developed over my time teaching this and seeing kids that were just confused and just didn't know what to do. So, this 4-step process, again, we haven't talked about all these yet. It's coming. Will kind of simplify everything for us. So, the first thing we're going to do when we start to simplify an exponential expression is we're going to try to get rid of the parentheses. And we do that by using the power rules, 3 power rules. So, if you go back and you look at the power rules, power rule A started with a set of parentheses and ended without. Power rule B started with a set of parentheses, ended without. Power rule C started with a set of parentheses, ended without. And so when we talk about getting rid of the parentheses, we're going to use one of those power rules. And so that's why you see that written out beside that one. Then our next step is going to be to get rid of the negative exponents. Now, you haven't seen any negative exponents yet. There will be 3 rules that deal with negative exponents. So again, that's coming down the line. And so when we get there, you'll see those 3 rules. And we're going to just kind of simplify that into get rid of the negative exponents. The third step is to use the product rule, which again we've talked about already. And then the 4th step is use what we are going to call the quotient rule. That's another one that's coming later on. And you'll notice that there are 3 rules for the first 2 steps. So 3 apiece, that's 6. And then 1 for the last 2. Well, that's only 8 of the 9. The 9th rule is one that I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. But it is... it's kind of separate and apart from these others. These others all work together really well. The other one is just kind of separate. It's very simple. You'll be able to do it without a lot of issues. But you need to understand that it is different. And so these 4 steps encompass 8 of the 9 rules. And again, that other rule just kind of stands by itself. So with that in mind, let's look at each of these. And so we've only really talked about the first step and that 3rd step, power rules and the product rule. And so I'll preface this by telling you every one of these problems can be solved in multiple ways. Based on the exponent rules, you could say, well, I think I need to do this first, or I need to do that first, or you could do different things in a different order. However, I'm going to do it based off those steps just to simplify it for everybody so that as you watch this, you know, okay, here's the first thing we're going to do, here's the next thing we're going to do, here's the next thing, and so on. Okay, that way I'm consistent with the way I teach it, and you're consistently seeing it in the same way. And so on this one, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the parentheses, meaning we're going to give this power of 3 to the 2 and the m, and we're also going to give this power of 4 to this 2 and that m. And so when you do that, we have 2 to the third, m to the third, and then give the power of 4, we're multiplying that by 2 to the fourth, and m to the fourth. So now our parentheses are gone. And so the next thing we need to do is get our, use our product rule to put this stuff together. So what the product rule says, again, is that if you are multiplying and you have the same base, well, we have a base of 2 here and we're multiplying. We're going to keep that base and we're going to add exponents. Well, the 3 plus the 4 is 7. And then we can do the same thing with the m's. So we have a base of m. We're going to keep that base. We're going to add their exponents. And again, you get m to the 7th. And so there's our final answer. We're not going to worry about what 2 to the 7th is. Again, that's a higher exponent than 6, so typically we won't tell that number. Now, somebody may look at this and say, well, I thought I needed to do the product rule. This problem is designed for you to do the product rule. If you had done the product rule and done that first, you would have said, well, this 2m to the third and 2m to the fourth, they have the same base. So I'm going to keep the base of 2m, and I'm going to add the exponents, 3 plus 4, and get 7. But you still end up having to give that power of 7 to the 2 and the m, and so you still get 2 to the 7th, m to the 7th. It's still the same answer. It's a different way to do it. So what I'm going to suggest to you is that you follow these 4 steps, and that way you don't have to look at it and say, okay, well, what rule could I use? What rule could be done? If I do that, okay, what are some other rules that I need to do to get it simplified? Those 4 steps are just going to very quickly knock it out for you if you'll follow those. And notice it's not any longer to do it either way. It's the same amount of steps. And so I'm definitely going to recommend the way I did it originally. So, with that in mind, look at this one. So again, we're going to get rid of the parentheses first, meaning we're going to give that power of 2 that's outside the fraction to everything inside the fraction. So the 5 is going to get the power of 2. K cubed is going to get the power of 2. And 3 is going to get the power of 2. Now, it is very possible that, let me change colors here, that you could have done this part in your head. You maybe saw that up here and said, well, I know that that's k cubed squared is power to a power, and we'll multiply exponents. But I don't want to assume that you noticed that or that you did that in your head. And so I'm writing it out so you see where everything comes from. Now, the 5 squared we can simplify and make it 25. That k cubed squared is k to the 6th. Again, power to a power. And we're having to do that because we still have the set of parentheses. Again, if you had done it up here and could do that in your head, you might not have parentheses left, but in this case, we still do. And then we can also simplify 3 squared. We know that is 9. And so now we don't have parentheses. But we also don't have the product rule that can be applied, because the product rule says if we're multiplying and we have the same base, and well, we don't have different sets of k's being multiplied or multiple bases of 9 or 25 being multiplied. And so this must be our final answer. If there's any questions that you have about either of those, let me know. Now look at this next one. So again, we're going to follow those same steps. First step being get rid of the parentheses. So we're going to give this power of 4 to the 1 and 5. So that is 1 to the 4th over 5 to the fourth. And that's being multiplied by this 2x squared. So we're going to give the power of 2 to the 2 and to the x. And I'm going to write this as being over 1. Because we're multiplying, we've got a fraction involved. When we multiply fractions, we're going to go straight across. And so I like to go ahead and write all my numbers as fractions so I can see what's on top and what's on bottom. So we don't have parentheses anymore, but we can clean this up some. So 1 to the fourth power is just 1. So I'll write all this out for you. And then 2 to the second power is 4. And then we've got our x squared. And all that's on top. So all the stuff on top goes together. And then all the stuff on bottom goes together. So 5 to the fourth power is 625 times 1, which is just 625. And so on the top, there's no need to have the 1. And so we can just rewrite this as 4x squared over 625. And we have our final answer. Again, no product rule comes into play there. And so that's all we do. And again, on the last one here, we are going to, again, follow those same steps. So we're going to get rid of the parentheses, give this power of 3 to everything in that set of parentheses, give the power of 4 to everything in its set. And so when you do, this negative 3 is getting the third power. And I am keeping parentheses around the negative 3 because if it had been squared or an even power, well, that negative has to be getting the power 2. And so we want to make sure that we do keep that number with the negative in parentheses. So the x is going to get the third power. Y squared is going to get the third power. And then that second set of parentheses, x to the second, or x squared, gets the fourth power, and y gets the fourth power. And so then we can clean that up some, so that negative 3 cubed, it's negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3, which is negative 27. Then we have our x cubed. This y squared cubed, again, power to a power, so we'll multiply the exponents. We get y to the sixth. And then the x squared to the fourth, again, power to a power, and so we're going to multiply those and get power of 8. And then we have the y to the fourth there for that last term. Now, we finally have parentheses gone. And again, maybe you could have done some of that in your head where you didn't have the parentheses in that second step. And if you can, by all means, do it. But assuming that you needed to keep those parentheses to see where all the numbers came from, at this point now we can use the product rule. And so with the product rule, we're going to combine our x's and combine our y's. And again, remember it says keep the base, add exponents. And so we have negative 27. And then our x is going to be to the 11th power, so 3 plus 8. And then our y is going to be to the 10th power, 6 plus the 4. And now that's all we can do with it. That is our final answer. That does complete section 5.1.